Welcome to the 7th episode of Let's Talk Sports by the Lake. I'm your host, Julian Howell, and this is my co-host, Jacob Barco. Today we're going to discuss the NFL. So, Jake, Carson Wentz has looked really good this year.
Yes, he has.
He's one of the MVP candidates, I would say. So, what are your thoughts about his level of play? Because we both predicted that he would have a big year this year.
Absolutely, yes. Carson Wentz is certainly exceeding expectations in his sophomore season in the NFL. The Eagles are 8-1. They have the best record in the NFL under his helm. Carson has really played a lot more confident this year. I think just having a year under his belt in the same system and just being more confident in playing on the NFL level has really helped boost the Eagles to that record. Carson's thrown for over 2,000 yards already, and we're just a little bit over halfway through the season. 2,262 passing yards, 23 touchdowns with only 5 interceptions. So he's really shown the NFL this year that he is the man in Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
How do you think he's doing?
He's doing great. You mentioned his statistics. He's on pace to pass for over 4,000 yards this year. And he's also really shown a lot of mobility. He's able to escape pressure in the pocket. And it's really what a lot of teams are looking for, a quarterback who can escape pressure and move around the pocket, have a good pocket presence. I'm impressed with that aspect of his game. And what do you think the difference is for the Eagles this year?
Well, again, I think a lot of it, plays into Carson's confidence. Just having that, full year of having the system under his belt. He knows the playbook better. They have a lot more playmakers, I would say, this year. With the addition of Alshon Jeffrey, they just actually traded for J.I. And so they have great running backs. They have Zach Ertz at tight end. They have a lot of playmakers on offense, and their defense has actually played pretty sound this year.
Yeah, they have. They're actually the number 1 rush defense in the NFL, and just really a good year. And I think they'll stay on pace to go far into the playoffs even.
I agree. We're going to talk about that here shortly, give our predictions. The next topic we'll discuss is Deshaun Watson's injury. As you know, Deshaun Watson has really proven himself this year to be the front runner for the Rookie of the Year for the Houston Texans. He obviously got injured last week. How do you feel that impacts the Texans' season moving forward?
I think they probably won't win the division this year or go to the playoffs because Deshaun Watson really has changed their team. He's gotten a lot of DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, so he's been really good, shown a lot of confidence, and has a bright future ahead of him. Hopefully he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I think, without Deshaun Watson leading this team, you saw what happened with Tom Savage this past Sunday under center, filling in for Deshaun, and they just weren't the same team. I don't know if that has a direct impact on the defense at all because they're not scoring a lot of points with Tom Savage under center. So obviously it's going to be harder for the defense to keep up. They're going to be on the field longer. It's gonna have a long-lasting impact on the team as a whole. The Texans did sign Matt McGloin, I saw, so I don't know if that's gonna help out if he's any better than Tom Savage for the starter. Yeah. Like I said, they have a great defense, but if they're on the field, 80% of the time, it's going to be very difficult for them to stay effective. So it'll be interesting to see how the Texans do for the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns trade mishap. It was last week when they tried the trade for A.J. McCarron, and it didn't go through for some reason. What are your thoughts about that, Jake, as a Browns fan?
Well, as a Browns fan, I honestly don't have a lot of faith in the upper management of this organization. It was right at the trade deadline. 4 o'clock was the trade deadline. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns agreed upon terms of a trade to send A.J. McCarron from the Bengals over to the Cleveland Browns, I believe, for a 2nd and a 3rd round pick. The Browns agreed to that. They said they were going to do that, but unfortunately, they did not send their paperwork into the NFL NFL in order to make the trade go through. There's a lot of talk in rumors on what exactly happened. I don't think we'll ever know, but the rumor is that the Browns sent their paperwork back over to the Bengals and expected the Bengals to send all of the paperwork into the NFL. The Browns know how to make trades. They've obviously done that in the past several years in acquiring picks. So I think a lot of that is just an excuse in order not to make the trade actually go through. How do you feel about that situation, Julian?
Well, I mean, it's really a weird situation because I thought maybe they would make a trade, but they didn't. And I guess this gives DeShone Kizer another chance to really show who he is as a quarterback. Maybe if he plays strong down the line, maybe they'll give him another shot next year. So.
Yeah, I think we have 8 more games to see what DeShone Kizer is made of. If he shows improvement and the Browns feel like he's going to be the future at quarterback, then maybe this is a blessing in disguise. But I guess time will tell in regards to that. As of right now, the Cleveland Browns stand with a 0-8 record.
0-8 record.
They have not won a game. Good news as Browns fans, Josh Gordon has been reinstated by the NFL. He is supposed to be back and playing, practicing sometime within the next 2 weeks, and shooting to play in his first NFL game since 2014 on December 3rd. So that'll be interesting to see if Josh Gordon can stay on the field. How do you think Josh Gordon can impact the Browns?
Well, I mean, he had a really good year in 2013. He had 1,600 receiving yards, so he's shown he could be a really good player in this league. So hopefully he can help the Browns out and improve their receiving core.
Absolutely. If he can stay on the field, I think he's a phenomenal talent and athlete. He can really have some breakout games if he can stay on the field. That's really the big question.
Absolutely.
Last thing we're going to talk about in the NFL is our NFL midseason predictions for the playoffs. Julian, let me let you go first and tell us who you think is going to make the playoffs in the AFC.
Yeah, so I think the Patriots, the Steelers, the Chiefs, and the the Steelers, the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Titans, the Jaguars, and the Bills. And in the NFC, I have the Eagles, Saints, Rams, Lions, Panthers, and Cowboys. How about you, Jake?
Well, I have essentially the same people winning the AFC. I have the Patriots, the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Jags, the Bills, and the Titans. I have the Bills and the Titans going in the wild card. And I see here that you have the Jaguars and the Bills winning in the wild card. For the NFC, I have the Eagles, the Vikings, the Saints, the Rams, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks. Okay. So it looks like the big disparity in terms of our picks are in the NFC. Nice. Now it looks like you think the Lions are going to win their division. How do you think they're going to do that?
Well, I think they have an easier schedule than the Vikings down the stretch. Not really playing a lot of good teams, and I think Stafford's the best quarterback in the NFC North right now because Aaron Rodgers is injured. So I think they can play well down the stretch, but you never know. Yes. It'll be interesting to see how Stafford plays down the stretch. As you said, Aaron Rodgers is hurt, so it doesn't look like the Packers really have a great shot at making the playoffs, as you predicted. I think the Vikings have a solid team, so it's going to be difficult for the Lions to overcome that, but time will tell. The other difference that we have in the NFC is I have the Seahawks also making the playoffs instead of the Panthers. Mm-hmm. Why do you think the Panthers are a solid team and they're going to turn their season around to get to the playoffs? I mean, I think they have an easier schedule down the stretch or in the last half of the season.
Okay.
And Luke Kuechly's back for the Panthers, one of the best linebackers in the NFL, so I think they'll play well down the stretch.
Okay. Do you think Cam Newton's going to actually perform better than he has in the first couple of weeks of the season?
Yeah, I think he will because they had a really big win last week, and Christian McCaffrey had a big game. And so I think, they'll probably get him more involved down the stretch, so I think they can make the playoffs.
And they have Greg Olsen coming back from injury, so that could really turn their momentum around, but it'll be interesting to see that. The reason why I picked the Seahawks in the NFC is I just really think Russell Wilson is a dynamic playmaker. They have Richardson, they have Lockett, they have Doug Baldwin, all as receivers. They're big play receivers. Of course, they have Jimmy Graham at tight end. I think that their defense has been solid for the past 5 to 7 years.
Oh, yes.
I really think they're going to make a push and win a wild card spot in the NFC. Well, let's talk about our Super Bowl predictions then, Julian. Who do you have coming out of the AFC and the NFC going to the Super Bowl this year?
So I have the Steelers coming out of the AFC, and the Eagles coming out of the NFC. I just feel like Carson Wentz has shown us that he's special, and I think the Steelers, their defenses look great this year, especially the secondary. So I think that'll be a really good matchup, like the first Pennsylvania matchup in the Super Bowl.
I think it would be really cool to see as long as the Eagles win. No, but I agree. I think the Steelers are much better defensively than they have been in years past, all starting with the secondary. The signing of Joe Hayden obviously has really paid off for them. So it'll be interesting to see if they can make it that far. My prediction is the Patriots versus the Eagles. I am definitely aboard the Wentz wagon. I think the Eagles are really going to go far this year. Their defense has been solid, as we discussed, and I think that Carson Wentz is really taking things to the next step. In regards to the AFC, the Patriots are still the Patriots.
Yes.
Tom Brady is still having a great season. And I think their defense is really starting to come around. The first couple of weeks, obviously, with the home opener against the Chiefs, their defense played atrociously. But after that, they've started to play better and better each and every week. So again, that's my prediction: is the Patriots versus the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and then Julian's prediction is the Steelers versus the Eagles. So we shall see if our predictions come to fruition.
Yes.
All right, and that does it for our NFL segment. The next thing we're going to discuss is
the segment. Today we're going to discuss some teams that have had a hot start. So, Jake, what are your thoughts about the Celtics' hot start?
Yes, the Celtics right now have a 9-2 record. They've really come out of the gates. Obviously, their first loss was to the Cavaliers in the opener, but since then they've gone 8-1, and they've really shown a lot of promise. Gordon Hayward, one of their big stars and signings of this offseason, went down in Game 1, and a lot of people wrote them off right away. Kyrie Irving, obviously, that was a huge trade in the offseason for the Celtics, and he has really, shown that he is a star and can carry that team, as much as it hurts me to say that as a Cavs fan. But yeah, they've shown that they can really hang in the East so far, 11 games into the season. How do you feel about the Celtics?
Well, I mean, like you said, they had the loss against the Cavaliers in the season opener. And Gordon Hayward got injured as well, so that's been tough for them. But they have other good young players in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, obviously Kyrie Irving, and they still have Al Horford, so they're bringing a lot out of their team. And they're able to be resilient and just bounce back from an injury and a tough season opener loss.
Absolutely. Another team that started off very hot is Julian's own Detroit Pistons.
Oh, yes.
They're off to a great start with a 7-3 record. How are the Pistons, turning things around this season, Julian?
Well, I think it starts with the great ball movement, team defense, and Andre Drummond is shooting 75% from the free throw line.
The same Andre Drummond that shot, less than 50% last year?
Less than 40%.
Oh, my goodness. That is quite the turnaround. So you think the ball movement is really the key to their success?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like the old Dwight Howard offense in Orlando when Stan Van Gundy was the coach for the Magic. I mean, Andre's in down low, operating the paint, and just passing the ball to shooters. So it's really a lot of good ball movement.
All right, and the next team that we're going to talk about is the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Oh, yes.
They are one of the early leaders in the West with a 7-3 record. They're obviously a very young team as well, with Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, and their big signing of the offseason, Jimmy Butler. What do you think is the key to the Timberwolves' success at the beginning of the season, and how do they sustain that throughout the year?
I think it's just following Tom Thibodeau's plan. He's really a defensive-oriented coach, so they just got to keep playing team defense and get all their players involved. I mean, they have 4 players scoring in double digits. They have Jeff Teague, Karl Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler, and Andrew Wiggins. So they really have a good core. So I think they just got to keep it going. And it's been a while since they went to the playoffs. And I think it was 2004 when they made it to the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers.
Okay, and that was KG was still on that team.
KG was still on that team.
Yep. Wow. So it's been about 13 years since the Timberwolves have made the playoffs, and I think they really can make a push this year. They have a great young core of players, and obviously adding Jimmy Butler has really impacted their team. The next thing we'll discuss in the NBA, I'm going to let you introduce that.
Oh, absolutely. So Devin Booker became the 4th youngest player to score 3,000 points in a season behind LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Carmelo Anthony. So it's really a great company of players. So he's shown to be a really good young player in this league, despite his team's lack of success.
Yeah, I think he's really shown a lot of promise out there in Phoenix, and he's obviously in good company with LeBron, KD, and Melo, and he's obviously he's ahead of Andrew Wiggins, and Andrew Wiggins has been phenomenal the last couple of years. So yeah, hopefully Devin Booker can keep up that momentum and hopefully turn the Suns around. I think they have a chance to be a good team. Moving on to the Suns, they just recently traded Eric Bledsoe to the Milwaukee Bucks. Can you tell us the details of this trade?
Absolutely. So they traded for Greg Monroe, a protected first-round pick and a protected second-round pick. So he sent out a tweet after an 0-3 start saying he wasn't happy in Phoenix. So the Suns traded their disgruntled player to a really young team in Milwaukee with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, Thon Macker. So really just a good young team, and led by Jason Kidd.
Right. I think, Jason Kidd has, a lot of NBA knowledge in his brain, obviously. I think they have a lot of young talent, again, on the Bucks, much like the Timberwolves do. And I think, maybe Eric Bledsoe can really push them into the playoffs and make them have a run this year. So that'll be interesting to see. Again, this is very early on in the NBA season, but there are a lot of young teams showing a lot of promise so far. So you'll have to stay tuned to the next episode and see how everything pans out in the NBA this season. The next thing we're going to talk about is the MLB.
The World Series in MLB, which the Astros won against the LA Dodgers in 7 games. So what are your thoughts about the Astros win? First win in franchise history.
Yes, well, first of all, congratulations to the Houston Astros. They beat the Los Angeles Dodgers in a 7-game series in the World Series to win their first World Series win in franchise history. It was a very, very entertaining series. A lot of the games there was multiple lead changes, multiple home runs in the late innings and even extra innings, and it was really one of my favorite World Series to watch over the past several years. Of course, the Astros won in 7 games, so it really it played out to go back to LA and have to win the last game. But one of the hometown favorites, Justin Verlander, who used to play for the Erie Seawolves, won his first World Series this year as a member of the Houston Astros. Now, do you know anything about Justin Verlander?
Well, he played for the Detroit Tigers. He was a great pitcher for them. He had been playing well since August 20th, having a sub-2 ERA. So he's just been really great, and it's great to see him win the World Series. And he also married Kate Upton, so he's had a good last couple of weeks.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has, Julian. Yes, congratulations, Justin Verlander, on your first World Series win as well. He obviously had a great career with the Tigers. The Tigers traded him over to a contender this year, and look what happened. He won a World Series. A lot of the struggles that happened in terms of pitching-wise during this series, both teams had great starting pitching. The problem came to when the teams had to go to their bullpens. There was a lot of struggles there. The relievers weren't doing their jobs this series, Julian. How do you think that impacted the overall outcome of the series?
Well, I think that's probably why the series lasted 7 games. I mean, up and down performance from the pitchers, or mainly the bullpen, And I mean, Cody Bellinger, only had 1 hit though during the World Series, and I think that was a factor of the starting pitching.
Absolutely, absolutely. The starting pitching, like I said, was phenomenal. Cody Bellinger obviously is a star player for the Dodgers, who was having a phenomenal season this year. He only had one hit during the whole World Series. So, the Dodgers were counting on him to stay together and actually make an impact during the series. He honestly did not. A couple other things. This was actually the highest scoring World Series ever. The most home runs hit ever in World Series happened this year. So it really ties into, the most home runs in the MLB regular season happened this year too. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, the balls are flying out of the ballpark, but it was really interesting to see. And again, congratulations to the Houston Astros on a great season. We're going to move on to 2018 now,
Yes.
and we're going to talk about the top 5 teams who we think have the talent to make it to next year's World Series. Julian, do you want to start off with that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the first team we have is the Houston Astros, who are fresh off their first World Series win. I mean, they have a lot of homegrown talent. I mean, great pitching. So I think they have a bright future. We also have the Indians, who also have a great bullpen and a lot of great players like Francisco Lindor. And we also have the Dodgers, who were runners up in the World Series. I mean, great pitching, great young talent, and Cody Bellinger and other players as well. And we have the Cubs, who who should still be good. I feel like a lot of free agents will come to Chicago, but they have to try to re-sign Matt Arrieta. And also the Yankees, who have a lot of homegrown talent, as Brian alluded to in one of the earlier shows.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I think the Cubs are still in it. They have to re-sign Jake Arrieta. They have to make sure that he is a part of their future. They're one of the younger teams in baseball, along with the Yankees. The Yankees have a lot of firepower. They knocked the Indians out of the playoffs this year. They've really come a long way and a lot faster than most people expected. Moving on, you have obviously the 2 World Series contenders, the Astros and the Dodgers. I think both of them are going to have phenomenal years again in 2018. A lot of the young cores are still with those teams, and the same thing for the Indians. The Indians have Francisco Lindor, Jose Ramirez. They're working on trying to bring Carlos Santana back, but they still have all of their pitchers: Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco, Trevor Bauer, and a great bullpen. So I really hope it's going to be a very good year again for the Indians and the Astros. Those are 2 of my favorite teams, and then we'll see. I think it's going to come down to the Dodgers and the Cubs in the NL, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2018. And we have one last thing we want to discuss in the MLB. A very sad moment for sports and a very sad moment for the Major League Baseball. I'll let Julian introduce this.
Yeah. So yesterday, Roy Halladay died in a plane crash in the Gulf of Mexico on the St. Petersburg coast. And he was really a great player. He had 8 All-Star appearances and 2-time Cy Young Award winner and 2-time wins leader in the MLB. And also, he had a no-hitter and it was a no-hitter.
And he also had a perfect game.
Perfect game, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And so he was really a great player, and hopefully he makes it to the Hall of Fame someday. I think with this resume, he probably will. And our thoughts and prayers here is Let's Talk Sports by the Lake go out to his family and friends, and just really, really sad.
Yes, Roy Halladay was one of the best pitchers to play in the MLB. He was with the Blue Jays and the Phillies. Like Julian said, 8-time MLB All-Star, 2-time Cy Young Award winner. In 2010, he threw a perfect game in the regular season, and then also he threw a no-hitter in the playoffs. So again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Halladay family on the passing of Roy Halladay.